it is ridiculous that the artist is the last one to get paid, and has to pay for everything and everybody before their cut comes out. But if they don't fully understand publishing, they don't fully understand masters, reversion. Like, why in any circumstance is it okay for you to own my IP in perpetuity? Why?
Hey, peace, what's going down? It's DJ Payne One with the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast powered by BeatStars. I'm joined by Dame Ritter, who, though is special, is not a special guest, and we also have an actual special guest today. Do you have any announcements before I announce the guest, Dame?
Nah, let's get straight into this. I'll make some announcements at the end, but let's get straight into this one. I'm excited.
Okay, cool. I was hoping you'd say that. This is someone that a lot of us have been fans of for a while. Both as a musician and as his new transcendent life as a Renaissance man. Torae, how are you feeling this morning?
I'm doing great. Great to see you guys both. Thanks you for having me.
Appreciate you for coming on. I know you have like 20 different things that you probably have to complete before 1 p.m. this afternoon, so we do appreciate it.
You joking and it's real serious. Today was like a crazy day. I was like, fuck, why did I say this day? This is a nutty day. But I've been a fan of what you guys have been doing as far as educating artists and music industry professionals. Dame and I crossed paths years ago, at the station with brands that he was working with. So, anything I could do to enlighten, educate, inspire, whatever, I'm always for it. So I'm like I said, I'm just happy to be here today.
So for the people that may not be familiar, can you give us, and I know you're working on a lot of things, have done a lot of things, but can you give people just kind of a brief history on, who you are and kind of what you've done and what you're doing now? And then we might dive into some of those details. For
sure. Brooklyn, New York, always got to start with that. Coney Island specifically. Came up in that era, inspired by the 90s hip hop. Being in New York City during that time, like my formative years, like being in high school and shit like that, just inspired me. I had always wanted to be in music, but just like, kind of like when you are growing and like in high school, when Mob drops and, like Jay and Big and just like all of that being the soundtrack to the time of your life where you finding yourself was like, just like a perfect marriage for me. So recording artists, decided to, for better or worse, stay independent in my career, but have been able to work with some amazing independent brands like Empire, like Duck Down, who I did my first deal with in 2009. Outside of that, radio personality, philanthropist, actor, because a lot of my favorite artists made the transition from music to television and film. So like I come from the school of LL Cool J, Will Smith, Queen Latifah, rest in peace, Pac, the list goes on and on. And as of recent, a songwriter, or, people say ghostwriter, I say songwriter, but again, just somebody who finds different ways to contribute to the culture and keep my brand intact, but also keep my finances intact.
Right. The different hats that you play, you may, it sound like it's intentional to stay within music. Was that because you really had those different interests, or did you just want to stay within music so that it complements the music as an artist?
I'll be honest with you. That decision happened because of a conversation that I had with a friend. And to give you like a short story, I was working a job. I always had a job. I was working a job that allowed me to still dabble in music. And I was a school teacher, and every summer or holidays, I had like this amazing schedule where I could pay my bills from 8 to 3 p.m. And then from 3 p.m. I could explore my passion. And I remember one year I decided that I wasn't going to go back in September. I went on tour, and it was like a really dope time, but I had took a year sabbatical from the job. And once that year was kind of closing, I was like, man, do I go back to work or do I stay in music? And my friend was like, well, no matter what you do, you got to work. It's all going to be work. You got to work. I had a child at that point. But it was like, you don't have to do something that you hate, or you don't have to do something outside of the music industry to provide, like stability for you. And I was like, I didn't think about that. I was like, am I going to go back to the school? Am I going to stay after school and like, work for FedEx? It was just like, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to make ends meet when music wasn't providing everything that I needed. And that conversation just showed me, it's like, yo, you're super talented. You can do 1,000,001 things. Just figure out where there's a void or where you could do something in the music business to keep you very much connected to it, but still, handle your obligations and responsibilities as a father.
Yeah. So when did you become a radio personality? Because and so 2 questions. When did you become a radio personality? And now you seem like you have a natural gift for speaking and speaking on air. Did you develop that, or did that come out of your artistry?
I'll answer the second question first. I think that performing, I've done 10 people in the room. I've done 10,000 venues. So me being on stage, being on the mic, being an orator, being a conversationalist, all of that prepped me for what I didn't know would become part of my journey. And I've always been comfortable in the spotlight, on stage, on mic. I was never one of those people who shied away from public speaking or anything like that. So for me, a part of it was just innate and natural. And then I had been preparing myself by being an artist for so long. It was much easier just to make that transition, because it's still a conversation, whether I'm doing it in the studio, in the booth, whether I'm doing it on stage, hosting or performing, or whether I'm doing it, Sirius XM or on location. It's all just conversation. So that part was easy. This part was harder, becoming a radio personality, because it wasn't something that was on my list of things to do. It wasn't something that I had planned. But I was offered an opportunity by my brother, DJ Eclipse, nonfiction, Rocksteady crew, legendary DJ Eclipse, who had helped me so much early on in my career, whether it be bringing me up to halftime radio to rap, that was a staple. Like if you were somebody in hip hop, you had to go to halftime. You had to have a crazy freestyle. You had to have music and fat beats. Him just taking my records, my vinyl on consignment, and putting me on the wall next to Mos and Kweli, next to MF Doom, next to Sean Price, just being in that mix and people saying, oh, I heard this record or I heard this artist on halftime, and buying that vinyl. He was just so instrumental in my career early on that when he asked me, because he had a show on Sirius XM, when he asked me to come and co-host, I couldn't out and out say no, because I just owed him at least the opportunity to give it a shot. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't want to do this, because at that time, and I've been doing radio, that might have been in like 2010. At that time, it was a little more taboo to see artists venturing out of what you knew them for strictly, especially as an independent artist, especially as somebody who hadn't made a huge impact in music where I was a household name in music. I didn't want to do anything to kind of sully that or dilute that. So for me, I was like, shit, I don't necessarily want to be a radio host, but to shorten the story, I did it because it was Eclipse. 3 weeks in, I was like, this is kind of cool. A year in, I was like, I can use this as a platform to reach people that I haven't been able to reach by just putting out music. So it turned into an opportunity for me to grow my brand and my audience by using Sirius XM and those subscribers to bring them into my other world.
For sure. Payne, I got a ton of questions. Feel free to jump in.
Well, I feel like this is a cool story, because a lot of artists, whether we're producers, whether we're rappers, whatever, we have this tunnel vision when it comes to our careers, because we started out wanting to do one thing. And I relate to your story because I actually have a background as a teacher as well, and then I went into radio to enhance my production career. I don't do it anymore, but a lot of people that I started with, or that I was around, or that I'm still around, that I hear from, they don't want to pivot from what their initial trajectory was, even if it feels like the universe is pulling them in different directions, maybe for the time being. So it's like this big psychological hump that a lot of us as creators have to get over. How did you get over that? Or how can other people get over that? Because that feels like the major obstruction for a lot of folks.
I mean, I think just people like you and me being honest about our journey and where it's taking us. Like when people ask me, young people ask me for advice, or if I speak on panels, one of the things that I always make sure I say is always take the meeting. And what that means to me is because we as creatives are so focused and we have blinders on, we're not looking to the left or to the right, but just headstrong about what we want to do. Sometimes you might miss an opportunity that's here. You might miss a blessing that's here if you're not open to it. Me as a person, I've always been a lot more open-minded. So I guess that helped in my transition, but also just looking and learning from some of my peers and seeing people who've been able to excel in something else, even though they might have started in one place. You see a lot of artists that go into television and film or vice versa. You see a lot of artists that go into the media space, like now, Nori, Joe Budden, two of the biggest, but people don't know that. Sway rap and put out records. We know Sway is this like amazing media personality. And had he not dabbled in that or not delved into that and stuck to the music, we wouldn't have classic sayings like "How Sway," you know what I'm saying? And all of these just amazing and timeless conversations that he's been able to procure. So for me, it was just like, again, being open-minded as a person in general, learning from my peers, and just being open to what the universe has in store. Like, your plans could be this big and God's plans could be this big. And if you're not open to it, you're going to miss out on just like a lot of opportunities. So I've been fortunate. I've been blessed. When people ask me like, what's next? I can never truly answer that, because the shit that I had planned for myself and the things that I put on my vision board and checklist always get met and superseded. So I just stayed doing the work.
That's great advice. I mean, that's essentially how I got into music at all, because I was in the corporate world. I was doing management consulting, happened to get laid off, and then just met with my brother in Hobson, and I was like, all right, give this music shit a try. I think that's just great advice. Entrepreneurs kind of carry that spirit, keep that open mind, and when confronted with a challenge, just kind of figuring it out, just figuring it out. Earlier in this interview, you said when you said independent artists, for better or worse, I wanted to come back to that because I want to talk about the better and the worse. So can you share a little bit of both sides of it, of being an independent artist?
Yeah, absolutely. The better part is creativity, control of your IP, what you want to put out, your conversation, the marketing, promotion, and the way that you are able to reach your audience. Unfiltered, very pure, very true to self. Whereas when you are with a major, there's a lot of hands in the pot. There's a lot more checks and balances, or at least checks of approval that you need to get before you can do things. You can't just put out a song when you want. You can't just shoot the video that you want. You might not be able to go with the single that you want. So, just me as a creative first, those things were so important to me that it made sense to stay independent. But the hurdles and the obstacles are a lot of those same things I said. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's like trying to book the show while you at the studio, writing the record, and the producer didn't show up. So now you learning Pro Tools. It's just so many different, hurdles that you have to face and ultimately figure out as an independent artist. So it's like the gift and the curse, because I don't think I would be as proficient in a lot of the other things that I've learned how to do had not it been for the necessity of learning how to do it, not really having a team, not always having the biggest budget in place, being able to understand the importance of relationships, being on time, being honest, being admirable, and having integrity, and just all of these things that help you along in life help me in my career as an artist, and as an independent artist specifically, because those are the things that get you the next job, get you the next booking, get you the next show, get you the next opportunity to pay your rent for that month if you go in month to month. And so those things like just benefited me greatly, and I look at just both sides of the coin. It's like some artists are household names and they've been able to make that work for themselves. And some artists have a very niche following and audience and they've been able to make that work for themselves. And then you have artists in both of those spaces who haven't been able to figure figure it out and make it work. So it's really about how much work you're willing to put in, what your character is, and where you ultimately put your strong suit.
What does your team currently look like? Do you move with a manager, or what does your core team look like?
It's crazy, man. I've actually never really had a consistent manager in my whole career. And that's just because I'm very much focused on what I want to do. And I'm one of those guys who put 110% into what I do. And when I'm not matched with that same energy, I just rather not be in business with people. I've had tons of people who've helped me along the way. Tons of people who've been around for a year, 2 years, or what have you, that have been great and beneficial, and that I love and owe a lot to. But a consistent person who does this 24/7, 365 like me, I've never had. So I'm my own manager. I'm pretty much the team. Shout out to, I have assistants and a few people that help me keep the schedule situated, who might answer an email or call, but for the most part, I'm a pretty much self-contained unit.
Okay. Payne, do you got another question before I go into this Instagram post, or?
No, I definitely want to get into the Instagram post. That's always a good starting point for any conversation or clickbait controversy, which I plan to exploit.
So the Instagram post that you put up, it says the music business needs a complete overhaul. It's not designed for artists to benefit the most from their art, and that needs to change. I guess just what inspired you to post that? Because it seems like for your situation, like you do probably benefit the most being an independent artist. So what inspired that post?
Man, let me look at the date. I know there was something specific. And when I post things that are very specific, I try not to post it in real time because I don't want people to necessarily connect it to a person, like I'm speaking about somebody else's situation or what have you. But just over the years, being in this business, working as an independent artist, seeing the way the mechanics move on my side, and then working with a lot of artists on major labels as a songwriter and seeing a lot of the shit that they go through, ultimately looking at the way that the business is structured and how the chain of command and how the money flows from the top down, and the artist being the last person on that list when the artist is the talent, is the draw, is the one that the people love, is the one that sacrifices time away from their family, their loved ones in the studio, risking their life at certain points. It's like, it is ridiculous that the artist is the last one to get paid, and has to pay for everything and everybody before their cut comes out. I think it's crazy. I think if people really were able to look at contracts, see how they were structured, and see how much of a disadvantage the artist is at in this whole chain of thing, that the artist generates it all. The artist creates the actual art that people are consuming. How are they the last ones or the ones to be compensated the least in this music business? It's crazy. It needs to be fucking torn down and rebuilt or restructured or something, because us as creatives and artists, we love making music. We not really, or whatever the art is, we're not thinking about all of the other things that go into creating it, marketing it, promoting it. And there are people who specialize in doing that who definitely should be compensated. But when the heads of companies and labels and all of these different entities and parts take the biggest chunk, like even when you got a 50-50, deal or JV or what have you, when you're paying for everything out of your cut of the 50 before you see a profit, whereas the other party that you're in business with takes their 50 off the top, no matter what, and then you have to pay for everything else, that is crazy to me. It's just super unfair, super unbalanced, and artists don't have unions and don't have the unity that we need to say, fuck it, we're not going to produce anything for you to put out, for you to market, for you to promote, that ultimately keeps your business going. If we don't create that, you don't have a business. How the fuck do you have the upper hand? How do you structure what the revenue stream should be when you're not the creative.
Right. Do you think, I mean, because I could play devil's advocate a little bit because,
please,
and you're speaking primarily for like artists that are signed to major labels, right? Because obviously you're not talking about yourself, you're not talking about other successful independent artists, you know. And I think with the rise of a lot of successful independent artists, we've seen labels be more flexible in their deals. So I think it's really more of an education process and being more transparent with what these deals are, so that you don't sign something that you don't understand, or that you potentially wait until you have more leverage to get the exact deals you want. Because I'm seeing more artists do that, because obviously me, more of a business person coming from the business side, I look at it like I'm watching Shark Tank, right? Like if you watch Shark Tank and somebody brings their business to the table, the sharks are going to offer them, and say their business doesn't have sales yet, it doesn't have that much going for it, they're going to want a bigger piece of that business. And a lot of times people give up more than 50% because their business is such at a small stage. They think the sharks can help them get to that global level. So I look at artists the same way. If you haven't really cultivated your fan base, if you don't have that many merch sales, you haven't hit the road yet, you know, they're not going to give you a good deal, right? So to me, I think we have the options now. I think it's more about education and just having a great team and understanding of what you're signing. And if you don't like what you're about to sign, just don't sign and continue to build it out yourself. So do you don't think those options are there now, or do you still think we need more? We still needed to develop, you know, or have some changes in the industry?
I still think that certain things in contracts are just unconscionable. I still think that because, again, if you're taking advantage of someone, then you can't justify that by saying it's just business. If a person is uneducated, and this is not to say that they should just be let off the hook, because you should educate yourself into whatever you're looking to do. But if they don't fully understand publishing, they don't fully understand masters, reversion, like why in any circumstance is it okay for you to own my IP in perpetuity? Why? Because you put up some money in the beginning to help me grow. Let's at some point put a sunset in there so that ends, so that it can revert back to me, so that my future generations can benefit from the work that I put in when I was here on this earth. Why do you own that forever? That's just like, for me, there's no justification for that. You put up money, you break an artist, you make them a household name. Should you be compensated? Absolutely. If they don't have any leverage when they come in, if they don't know to ask for certain things, I totally understand you doing the business thing, but let's also be humane and ethical at some point, because it's not all just black and white, sign on the dotted line papers. It's like, why would you take somebody's ability to make money from their art and passion so that their kids can have something and their grandkids can have something, just because you put up $2 million in 1989 and they got a #1 hit? Because when you look at these commercials, you see songs getting synced and licenses, and so many of these artists don't even eat off of that because they signed away something that they had no understanding of and knowledge of back in the days. Now, where we are in 2021, a lot more technology, a lot more information. YouTube is your friend. Google is your friend. So please try to educate yourself as much as possible about this business. Try to have a good lawyer or somebody who has your best interest at heart. But some of this shit, Dame, is just like, why should we be negotiating from this point? Let's start at a place that's slightly uneven and try to get some balance. You starting all the way over here, it's like, even after we negotiate for 3 weeks, I'm only at a point where we should have been starting. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, I just think I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy. I think is nasty. I think that the people that do what's been industry norm for the longest time just needs to change. And that's just how I feel about it. That's where I stand.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add this. Sorry to cut you off, Dan. I'll add this: with all the new opportunities that that we're afforded with, you know, the new era of DIY artists and streaming platforms and free social media platforms that a lot of artists are thriving on, myself included, there are still all these moments where you realize how pervasive these traditional and, as you said, often unconscionable, but certainly unfair music industry norms or standards, whatever you want to call them, truly are. Because, for example, yes, I can join TikTok and go viral, but what happened when TikTok started taking off as a platform? Instantly, they ink a deal with UMG. I can use YouTube and I can sell my beats on YouTube and market them for free, essentially. But what happens when I use the same royalty-free sample that an artist signed to UMG used? All of a sudden, I'm getting the copyright flag and UMG is profiting. So, and that happened to me. You know, both of those things that I said are absolutely true, and they're the realities of all small creatives. So no matter what we do and no matter how much space we carve in the overall business by completely circumventing the majors, we're still affected by them. They still have their feet on our necks. It might not be as hard as it would be if we're signed to them, but we're still feeling the effects of 100+ years of the labels having control, because they still have it.
Right. 10,000%. I agree with that. They swoop in, and wherever there's an opportunity to make money or to put their stronghold in their relationships, and obviously they're in this capital, in effect, they utilize that so that it affects artists, even trying to, like you said, circumvent that system. It still affects artists to that degree. You know, there are artists that don't know that you come to the table with X amount of leverage, then you can start putting certain clauses and things in your contract so that you can get your masters back, reversion. You know, there's admin as opposed to selling off your publishing as a whole. But artists don't know that. And the labels do know that. And they utilize those ignorances to their advantage, when I just feel like it's not necessary. It's so much money to be made that if you invest in artists, you help break an artist, you help take a song to #1, that you can still generate enough revenue to keep the building going without totally depleting what this artist has to look forward to for the rest of their career.
Yeah. To me, it's even just bad business from, like, it's not smart. And well, these labels don't really look at artists to be around for that long, because if they did, they wouldn't put in place some of these practices. Because, you know, when I ran Funk Volume, like, I wanted it to be an environment where people felt comfortable that they'd want to make music on the label for 20 years, 15 years. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, so these labels don't see longevity in any of these artists. And I think that's why they try to snatch as much as they can off the plate. But, you know, as long as we have these conversations and we're educating artists, I'm hoping that as we get 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we hear less of these stories. But I would also encourage artists to be patient and to educate themselves and to build as much as they can on their own, right? Because I still think that there's way too many artists just taking deals way too early, you know, because they get offered a certain amount of money, or they look at what they would have to do on their own and they think it's too difficult, or they don't have the right team around them. So I would just encourage artists to be more patient, to learn and continue growing their fan base, because as they're stacking fans, the deal with the label is going to get a lot better, right?
But there's two parts. I think there's two answers to that, not to cut you. I think there's two ways to look at that. Sometimes you fucking make 3 songs and the 4th one goes crazy on YouTube, and, you know, obviously you thrust right into conversations that you were not prepared for. The other part is, because we've been afforded certain things in life, we kind of forget about the people that are in dire straits. Like, when I go back to my neighborhood, when I go back to Coney Island, for as much as I'm still tapped in there, I forget about some of the harsh realities that people is dealing with each and every day. No hot water, no elevator, shooting, police prep, all of this shit that we work hard to get out of. When you come to somebody who's never had $1,000 at one time in their life and you offer them $100,000, they're going to take it. They got to get out that fucking 400 square feet with their grandmother there and they sleeping with their little cousin who piss in the bed. It's just like, you can't expect the vast majority of people who come from disenfranchisement or who come from a harder way to go just to wait it out, because everybody can't bet on themselves. They don't have the luxury of betting on themselves from the jump. And that's kind of what my point is on that.
Well, my thing is, and again, I think it all goes back to education, because if a label is interested in an artist in that situation because they're hot, I'm telling you, if you're hot, you can get money now. Like, you just have to know how. You don't have to wait. Like, whether it's merch, whether it's YouTube, whether it's sponsorship, like there's so many different revenue streams that are available to artists these days. If you're hot, you can monetize it right now. You just have to have the know-how. And I know that that's where, a lot of people are lacking. So it's not even about being super patient to get to the money, like, because you can get to it now. What I'm saying is being patient and continuing to build out that foundation, because whatever they're offering you now, as long as you continue to elevate, it's going to be 3 times that, 4 times that, a year from now.
Right. I feel like, I just speak to the dudes that I'm speaking for the guys that fucking waking up every day, moving weight, moving a brick, fucking selling dime bags, doing what they got to do to fucking put food on the table that night, that don't have the wherewithal or know the importance of a brand, don't understand merchandising, don't understand, even how to put some music up on the DSPs and get paid in 30 days. So those people, I think, are a lot more, I think there's a lot more of them than your Master P's, than, your guys who understand, like, yo, if you offer me $1 million, I'm worth 10, I just feel like, and again, when somebody waves a checking, it's just like the analogy of when guys opt to go into the league as opposed to going to college. Anything can happen in that year, 2 years, back when it was 4 years. There's so many variables. There's so much shit that can happen. I got to take care of my moms right now. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that when you are in a position where you're in need of something, people come in and they take advantage of that.
Right. I hear you. And for any young person that may or come across this podcast, if you do sign a deal early, try to make it as short as possible. Make sure you have somebody that really understands the contract. Make sure that you get every single question answered that you have. Honestly, I mean, there's definitely more controls you can put in place for certain risks, but I would say, definitely try to, shorten the length of the contract as much as possible. If you feel like you got to sign a deal in the near term. Cool. What so for back to go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that the business also does a really good job of trying to keep you from the knowledge, the information, and the tools that can ultimately help you structure a better situation for yourself. There's a lot of information that, although is out there, is not readily available. There's always 2 sides of every coin, but I feel like certain things that even people are looking for, the way contracts are structured and worded, and the paragraphs and the terminology that they use, it becomes really difficult for a novice to understand. And
it's difficult for me to understand. I don't.
And we've been seeing these shits forever. Like, I look at some of the things, I'm like, wow, like, why is that even an option? But, to your point, yeah, try to hold out, try to educate yourself as much as possible. Have people around you that hopefully genuinely care about you and your well-being, and try to work out the best terms. Don't use the label's lawyer. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a production deal, don't use their legal counsel. Like, you got to have somebody that's there for you, about you, and fighting for your best interest.
Right. Before we wrap it up and you kind of tell us what you have coming up soon, I wanted to talk briefly just about relationships, because you have great relationships. I've never heard or seen anybody speak negatively about you, even online, which is amazing, because I mean, you probably do get negative comments, but I've never seen them. And that's a pretty impressive feat in this day and age. How do you approach networking and building good relationships in this industry?
Man, I try to be a good person. I mean, it's gonna sound cliche as fuck. I try to be a good person regardless of what the situation is. You know, just certain things that are my character makeup. Respect, showing up on time, respecting people's time, not always coming to the table with an ask, but maybe trying to figure out where there's a void and how I can help you fill it, or coming to the table with something to offer as opposed to something to take away. Like, those things are important to me. I do a lot of research. Like, I was always the guy who wanted to know who everybody in the room was, so that if ever I came across that person, there's a conversation to be had. But I know who I'm talking to, and so that helps me direct what I want to talk to that person about. My relationships just come from, like, people know if you call Torae, he's reliable, he's dependable, he's not going to show up with 80,000 people on Hennessy with mad weed smoke. Not that I'm against any of that, but just understanding, like, being a business person. I also took business administration in college. So just understanding that there's the music and there's the business. And just because you excel at the music doesn't mean you can lack in the business portion of it. So I always just try to do good business, do right by people. And your name enters rooms long before your physical does. And that's like something to keep in mind. People are going to talk about you. When people are speaking about you in rooms, you want them to be saying the best things possible so that you can end up physically in that room and into the next room and so on. So that's just my me, you know, and I'm quality. I'm a brand you can trust. I shoot straight. You know where I stand on things. You know my pedigree. You know the people that I work with. You know the lineage, and like all of those things just help to make up who people understand Torae to be, and that's been probably my greatest asset in the business.
Indeed. Do you, before we wrap it up, you want to let people know if you got projects coming up, or what time the show comes on, or where people can find you?
The many shows.
For sure. I'm on Sirius XM Monday through Friday. The Tour Guide is my show there. I do a show on Instagram Live with my brother Bonsu Thompson. It's called Hard to Earn, where we review new music, classic albums on their classic monumental anniversaries, whether it be a 10-year or a 20-year, 30-year, what have you. It's kind of like Bezo with his time as editor-in-chief of Double XL and his time at the Source magazine. Me, obviously, with my pedigree and my career as a recording artist and writer. It's like the music meeting. It's like those conversations when you saw the 5 mics in the Source, and as much as you loved that or hated that, you wanted to know the conversations that led up to it. We do it live in front of the people, so that's really dope. You know, acting. I gotta put myself on camera at 1:30 Eastern for an audition. So again, television and film is something that I always wanted to do. So there's that. And writing, you know, songwriting. People keep asking me for another album. I haven't put out a project since 2018, but you hear music from Torae on a regular basis. And really, that's just part of the ultimate plan to secure enough of those huge placements to make sure that financially this piece of the pie is structured and situated so that enables me to go out and do the Pete Rock record and the DJ Premier record and the Ninth Wonder record and all of those things that I love and that people love from me. I have to put the pieces in place to make sure that those other things happen. Because I'm comfortable with putting out a great body of work that sells 5,000 units. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't got to hit 20, 30 in order to keep the house standing, you know, because I do so many other things. I can be so pure and honest in my music. So I just ask people to give me the time to allow me to do those things that put this thing in place. But I love the fans. I love the supporters. I got people with lyrics tattooed. I got people with my face tattooed. I've met so many amazing people through music that I can never fully abandon it, walk away. I just take time between projects because I care about the art And when I listen to my last bodies of work, I'm like, fuck, do I have anything better to say or anything to add on to this conversation? You know, and that's what inspires me to keep going, is when there's something new for me to talk about, or there's a way for me to improve on what I've already given you.
Let me ask then, if you don't mind me asking, the plaques in the background, are those part of your radio career or are those part of your writing career?
So the ones that are visible are the radio ones. And, you know, again, like keeping anonymity and the respect factor of the people, the artists that I work with. Although some are cool with, you know, like I'm never the one to post on my Instagram, yo, I wrote, you know, that's not really my steez. I just come from a different cloth. So these ones you get from radio, that one, those, that's the pen. You know, so the one, when you come to the crib, then you see the pen, you know, but when we doing Zoom, you see the ones that I've gotten as a personality on radio, you know, and shout out to these artists behind me.
I think that, I mean, that plays into the building good relationships too, because you got to know when to share information and when not to, you know, because people, you might impress your followers by saying something, but the people that you actually work with day to day didn't want you doing that, and they might not give you another opportunity because you're over here trying to get liked, but you're losing business.
Precisely. I couldn't put it any better. I respect the code, man. I respect the code, for better or worse. You know, I always say I'm loyal to a fault at times, but I respect the code. It's just certain things that I understand help me to get the next opportunity. And so, like, I'm not going to blow an opportunity to work for fucking the biggest artist in the game because I'm trying to get 1,000 likes on the post.
Right. So, well, thank you, man. I appreciate you showing up and dropping these gems for our audience. Really appreciate it. Can you just drop your social media handles real quick?
Absolutely. At Torae, Torae. That's Instagram. That's Twitter. And that's primarily where you catch me. I'm not like a Facebook guy. I don't TikTok. You know what I'm saying? But Instagram and Twitter is where you can find me. It's Torae.com is the site. Thank you guys both for having me and giving me an opportunity to speak about what I'm passionate about. Hopefully this conversation is enlightened somebody, educated somebody, entertained someone. But yeah, you know, that's what I think anybody, you know, I'm 15 plus years in this business. I think anybody that has some history and some knowledge, I'm not a hoarder of information. I like to freely give it away because that's how you help the next generation. And you become a part of their story. You know, they become fruits of your tree because you did something to help them get in the game or keep their footing in the game. And so, like, that's what it's all about for me. So I'm always here to give it up, bro.
So we
appreciate that. Once again, this is the Music Entrepreneur Club powered by BeatStars. We're live. Damon and I are live twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a free music business mentorship program. So conversations like these, they're interactive. You don't have to sign up for anything. You just visit beatstars.live and there it is. And if you can't make it, it's archived on BeatStars social media, archived on my YouTube as well. I know, Dame, you wanted to announce some things because you have 1,000,001 things in the works. Oh, and it's Torae does too.
Go ahead, Torae.
Yeah, shameless plug. I totally forgot about the class that I do in Brooklyn, my hometown, Mega Evans, the business of music, where I have amazing people come in and speak about their career, their expertise in the music business, whether it be marketing, promotion, people from PROs, which is your ASCAPs, your CSATs, your BMIs, people from the DSPs, whether that be your Spotify, your Tidal, your Apple, SoundCloud, etc. You know, I want to, again, this just speaks to me being able to figure out ways to give back and to educate people that want to be a part of this business, whether on the artist side or on the executive side. I bring in people that have the knowledge and the tools that you need. This information that I told you that they hoard and keep, this is a place where you can get that information and learn about this business so that you can be best prepared to enter it when you become ready.
And this, I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I think this industry is going to continue to change and evolve for the better, because we have platforms like yourself, like what we do. There's a lot of people that are doing what we're doing, and I think that it's going to work. I think it's going to, you know, change some of the deals, you know, and benefit artists going forward. So thank you for your efforts as well. The one thing that I wanted to plug, we're going to announce, so I'm doing a project called 1 Week Notice. I think I've told you about it before. I did one in 2018. I'm doing another one starting next month. We haven't revealed the artist yet, but this is where we fly 6 artists to LA, put them up in a nice house to create a project in a week. We haven't announced the artist yet, but we are going to announce them in a couple of weeks. DJ Pain 1 is on the production. We got Dream Life on the production. And actually it's giving me a chance to plug Pain too, because I think from the music that I've heard from you, Torae, I think you and Pain could create something really dope as well. Not to force anything, because I know not to force anything upon artists and producers, but you know, I'm
always here to create, man. Like-minded people. If we like-minded in certain places, I think the music follows and it comes into play as well. But I'm always down to cook up and create for sure.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I've been wanting to for a while. Just putting that out there too.
But yeah, we're recording 1 Week Notice, and this is going to be at least an annual thing going forward. I missed 2019 and I missed 2020, obviously because of the pandemic. But 1 Week Notice is going to be something that we do at least on an annual basis going forward. So it goes down next month from June 5th to the 12th, and I'm excited about it. So look out for that. I guess that's it. And also, if you want to get an alert before we go live every Tuesday and Thursday, just text MEC to 844-206-7800, and you'll get a text right before we go live. Torae, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Damn, thank you, Pain 1. Appreciate you guys both, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you. Shout out to everyone tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time. Peace.